So hey guys, welcome to another Warframe video, and today I thought I would take a bit of a break from chasing down the Parvo sisters and Kuva liches and all that stuff and talk about something else instead. And that something is a buff to primary and secondary weapons that didn't receive quite as much fanfare as the other buffs because, you know, everyone's talking about galvanized mods and everyone's talking about arcanes, but there was another buff to primary and secondary weapons that was quite good. I'm talking of course about the corrupted crit buff, because the corrupted crit mods, that being creeping bullseye, critical deceleration and critical delay for pistols, shotguns and rifles respectively, have been buffed a lot. They now provide 200% bonus critical chance across the board, and the negative fire rate has been reduced, so it now only reduces fire rate by 20%. These were previously very niche. You would only use them every now and then on some very specific weapons, because on 99% of our arsenal, the bonus crit chance would immediately be outweighed by the negative fire rate. It was just not worth it. Now, this isn't actually the first time these mods have been buffed. They were even worse before. The amount of crit chance these mods used to provide with their original iterations was laughable. So they buffed the crit chance but left the fire rate as it was, which originally was minus 36%, which was simply too high for the vast majority of weapons, as I've mentioned already. So now they buffed the crit chance again, though not as much as they buffed it previously, but they also reduced the fire rate penalty. And what do you know, now we have a ton of weapons where we can actually use these mods and get far more power out of them than even standard crit mods. Now, the most affected category of weapons were by far shotguns, because blunderbuss is just terrible. So on Corinth Prime, for example, with blunderbuss you have 57% crit chance, but critical deceleration, which also has the same polarity by the way, bumps it up to 90%. Now granted, you do lose a little bit of fire rate, but that is a huge amount of extra crit. Now, it's not so good to where you would put it on a weapon where the fire rate is already low and you're making it even worse, so you then have to compensate with a fire rate mod. But if the fire rate is fine and you honestly don't really feel it on a lot of weapons, it's only 20%, you might as well use this instead of blunderbuss. On Corinth Prime, for example, I like to run a fire rate mod because the base fire rate for me is a little bit low, but it still feels fine with critical deceleration, so I just get basically a bunch of extra crit for free. The second most affected category of weapons, in my opinion, is going to be launchers, more specifically primary launchers, so stuff like the new Tenet Envoy. Because here the benefits of having high crit chance are invaluable. You want to have reliable crit on a rocket launcher because you're not going to be firing it very often, so when you do fire a rocket, you want it to crit. This also kind of negates the negative fire rate because launchers tend to have large AoE, so you don't need to fire them as often, meaning that low fire rates aren't that big of a deal. Now, one place where it's definitely going to be questionable is critical delay and automatic rifles, because here fire rate is a big deal. So here I would most likely stick to point strike, though on semi-automatic rifles, especially on ones that have high fire rate, so the negative fire rate from critical delay doesn't matter, you can just go with critical delay. And finally, the class of weapons that is going to be least affected by this are of course secondary weapons, and this is mainly because we have primed pistol gambit. But even then, there are going to be some secondary weapons where creeping bullseye is a better choice, because it does have slightly more crit than pistol gambit and it's also cheaper. So on weapons where fire rate doesn't matter, you know, semi-auto weapons, some explosive weapons, you can actually run creeping bullseye as well. However, there is one more thing to bear in mind with these mods, and that's that the negative fire rate can actually be used to your advantage on some very specific weapons. Hemorrhage and internal bleeding have a fire rate cap, and if you're under that fire rate cap, it doubles the chance of getting a slash proc from an impact proc. So if one of these corrupted crit mods were to take you under this cap on a weapon where you would actually use hemorrhage on internal bleeding, you're gonna get far more value out of them. So please don't let the new and shiny galvanized mods overshadow these corrupted crit mods, because the crit buff, especially on something like shotguns, is pretty huge. And that's pretty much all I wanted to say, so I thank you very much for watching as always guys. I hope you have enjoyed the video and found it helpful, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.